All right, beautiful, beautiful card slingers and Coven members. I have a video that's suitable for the both of you because I'm today talking about magical kind of witchy style decks that I have been loving hard of late. And I say this with just every fiber of my being. I have just been absolutely loving these decks, and I really do feel like they fit a really magical theme. So I have most of them out on my altar already because I have been reading with them for a period of time now, and I do not have many of the boxes available, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I do have some of the boxes, but not all of the boxes. Okay, so let's start off with first, closest to me, is the Herbcrafter Tarot. This is the Herbcrafter Tarot. You couldn't see very much there, but I did a bit of a flip through of the deck, and I talked a little bit about what I felt when I was initially going through the images for the very first time, and I just got such a good vibe from the deck. It really is quite earthy. It's the Herbcrafters, so it's a really earthy inspired deck, and it deals a lot with plant medicine, with plant energy. The court cards are very inspired by curanderos and I can't remember the other ones. Wait, I can. Madres, alditas, and hiajas. They are the court. I have them written up the top so I know what is what. The hiajas are page, the adelitas are knight, the madres is queen, and the curanderas are king. And I've just really loved utilizing this deck. I mean, the Herbcrafters Tarot, I didn't know if I was going to love it. There's the backing of it. I did see a few images of it and I thought, I don't know if that's for me. And then finally, I was just inspired to buy it. And when I did, and I opened it up for the first time, I realized why people were raving about it. And it's not because the artwork is stunning. It is not because the deck is made of incredible cardstock, because let's face it, I like my cardstock to be thick. That is not it. And it's not because it's borderless, because it's not. All the things that I love in a deck, this is not. But there is something quite special about the Herbcrafters Tarot that keeps me coming back for more. Now, I haven't used it quite enough to tell you exactly what that something special is. However, I can tell you that there is something special. At the very least, there is. And so that is the Herbcrafters Tarot. And that is my first show and tell for a magical witchy deck for today. And I should mention, this is in no particular order. So there you have it. The next deck that I have for you is an oracle deck, and it is the Magick of You Oracle by Fiona Horn. This is a mass-produced deck, as is the Herbcrafters Tarot, which I neglected to mention. This is the backing of the deck, and it is borderless. The cardstock is not great, but it is borderless, and the images are incredible. I did a really big walkthrough live chat talk about blessing, consecration, activation of this deck with Alora some time ago, and I did it live. So it's up there somewhere for you to see. But I have been loving this deck. The Magick of You Oracle is specifically created to be used in magic, I feel. The artwork is evocative. You're not going to find too many cliches in this one. It's been written from a really unique perspective. Fiona Horn is an Australian witch and a magical practitioner. She has quite a few books behind her. And I have been a fan of hers, so to speak, since I was like 19 years old. So the fact that she has released a couple of new books and a new oracle deck, of course I had to get it, and I'm so happy that I did. There are some beautiful rituals to follow. There is some really unique information to be found in the guidebook, so I highly recommend going through the guidebook of the oracle deck. I don't often recommend going through guidebooks, although they can be very, very helpful in understanding the perspective of the artist and the creator, and so I do find them to be of particular value. And if a theme within a deck is quite obscure, then I'm always going to go for the guidebook to understand a little bit more about the theme. And I do appreciate a well-written guidebook. However, this one is a must. Like, the little rituals in here that you are going to find is chef's kiss good. And the artwork, you would not believe that this is photo manipulation. When you look closely at these images, they are just like, they're that good. Like you can't see what was the photo and what wasn't. Like I've sat here and I'm like, can I see? Can I see? Because typically I don't like that kind of Photoshop collage-y kind of photo and then the digital manipulation and I don't know. But that art style in particular has come a long way, so I should be a little bit more forgiving of it. And this beautiful deck, Magick of You, has made me quite forgiving of that. And it showed me what people can now do in that genre of art. So beautiful deck. It is a beautiful deck. It is so magical. It is one of those decks that I would say is best used as a personal deck to begin with. This is not to say that if you have a client that you read for instance, if you're a professional reader and you have a client that you're familiar with who has come back multiple times, I would probably pull a card from this deck for that client, and I certainly would if it was one of my clients. But for the most part, I do think this is a beautiful ritual deck. It's a great deck to use within the context of magic. There's a little shadow excavation that can take place when you are utilizing the Magick of You Oracle. And I just think it is a kick-ass Oracle deck. So if you've been after a really kick-ass Oracle deck, then go no further than the Magick of You Oracle by Fiona Horn, because you will not be disappointed. I mean, you might be disappointed with the cardstock, and I definitely did have a card chip on me. And that was unfortunate, but I still love it. And the box is gorgeous. Spot gloss, matte finish. It feels velvety on the hand. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, the next deck that I'm going to show you is the Everyday Witch Tarot by Deborah Blake, and the artwork is by Elizabeth Alba. So this is a Llewellyn publication. It's a 78 card deck, 264 page guidebook. And I think it's gloss. If memory serves, I think it might, yes, I was right, it's gloss. But it has a fair bit of information to it. I mean, look at the structure. Am I even doing that properly? Like, look at that structure. It's got quite a bit of information here, so you are going to get, you know, it's going to be suitable for beginners, I suppose is what I'm trying to say, because if you're an experienced tarot reader, you might just want to go through that book for the perspective, oh, my nose ring, for the perspective of the artist and the creator. But for the most part, I didn't get too much amazingness from it. Here's the deck anyway. Really cutesy back, non-reversible, but it is borderless, so we forgive it. We forgive it because it's borderless. It's Llewellyn cardstock. Is it me, or is Llewellyn cardstock getting thinner? Somebody talk to me about that. So the style of art is not my cup of tea. It's not. It's just not. But once again, it was one of the decks that was mentioned to me time and time again that I saw floating around the internet, and I was like, not for me. The artwork is not for me. And then my bestie, Alora, got the deck. She was like, this deck is amazing. You need this deck. And I'm like, nope. She's like, no, you need it. And then she started pulling cards from it and showing me, and just one thing led to another, and I went out and I'm like, there, I bought the stupid deck. And I don't mean to be condescending towards the deck, but at the time it wasn't something that I was absolutely in love with. But now, after having used it, I see what the fuss is all about, because it is a very clear reader. Yes, the artwork still bothers me a little bit, but I can forgive that for the fact that it is a very clear reader. And I like the colors. I like where the artist was going. I like where the creator was going. There's kind of like a little kitschiness to it. There's a little, I don't know, there's a little humor. There's a little comedy. There's a little stereotypical nature about the art. And I don't know, it's a good color palette. It's vibrant, it's cartoonish, it's everything that many other people like, but it's not specifically my cup of tea. Nevertheless, I have found this to be an all-rounder, the Everyday Witch that is, to be an all-rounder of a reader. I have been able to utilize it in so many different types of client readings, and it performs very well. It is clear, it's non-convoluted, it's not a cheeky deck, it's a really straightforward deck, and it's a deck that goes, oh hey, that's great, but have you considered this? And what about this? And how about you look at it from this perspective? And I was like, oh, so you've got the wise sage in you, have you, deck? And we've had a really good time as a result. It's under Lava Rock, in case anyone cares. Yes, not Lava Rock. And so that is the Everyday Witch Tarot by Deborah Blake. And what can I say? It took me by surprise. I was reluctant and now I'm not, and I must simply recommend it because despite the fact that the artwork might not be for you, it is a bloody good reader and I have to recommend it. The next deck that I'm going to show you is the Maiden Oracle by Layla and Olive. This is a self-published deck, 400 GSM cardstock, or at least 380. That may be 380. Beautiful gilded edges, just an absolutely gorgeous illustration for the back. And this is a botanical-based oracle deck. It is part Major Arcana, part oracle deck, and then it has some Greek goddess cards thrown in there for good measure. The Maiden Oracle is so witchy. It is so witchy. It feels like you're working with an actual oracle. Not like an oracle deck, but an actual oracle. I think the thing that I love the most about the Maiden Oracle is, I have the Pythia Botanica and the Ophidia Rosa tarot also by Layla and Olive, and the things that seem to be missing of importance to me at the very least in those two decks were suddenly present in the Maiden Oracle. So it feels like a much more complete type of deck, and I would love to see them come out with a second edition of the Ophidia Rosa Tarot with the herbal associations on the cards as well, because that is something that I found was sorely lacking, is the herbal associations, whereas this one does not. It says Rutabaga, keeping on going. Tells you exactly what the illustration, what plant it is. There we have it, and there's more in the book as well. This one here we have Dogwood, Reconceive. They are not your typical, they're not your typical keywords. They're not your typical oracle cards. This one here is a goddess card. It's Hellborn and it's Medusa. So you have this interesting energy woven in there. Then you have, this is a Major Arcana. This is the High Priestess. And I don't think that the actual plant is suggested in that one, but I do believe it might be in the guidebook. The guidebook is somewhere here. The box is somewhere around here, but it's one of those boxes that I find it and then as soon as I put it away, I can't find it again. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just not one that I have very much luck like tracking down on my shelves. It's somewhere in there, folks. I promise you, it's somewhere in there. But I have had an incredible experience with the Maiden Oracle, aside from the fact that it is visually stunning. It is just, it's sultry. It feels like sultry and a bit obscure and sometimes annoyingly so. Like, oh, okay, so what does that mean? So it doesn't make the best finisher. It's not a hug deck. And I find that a lot of oracle decks are a hug deck. And I got the term hug deck from Kelly from the Truth in Story. As soon as she said it, I loved it because I tend to use oracle decks at the end of my reading, specifically to wrap it up and just to end on a sweet note. And I was like, yeah, so hug deck makes a lot of sense. It's certainly not a hug deck. It's not the sugary sweet deck. It's not the feel goods. It is a hard-hitting, kind of stark, sultry, dark and brooding kind of oracle deck, which I totally dig. Perfect for a winter time if you are in the hemisphere that is experiencing their winter call. You will probably love this. The artwork is beautiful. It's drawn. The illustrations are just lovely. And they're minimalistic, but they're done in such a way that makes the experience of using the Maiden Oracle so much more magical. I don't know, folks. I really like this one, and I think as a side note to magical creation specifically, like, I don't mind pulling a card from this and going, okay, hibiscus. Lust for dust. So a really great one to have if you're making, say, a love charm or a love incense or a love candle magic, just like popping that to the side. And if you were using some hibiscus, like how good would that be? So there's more uses for the Maiden Oracle than first meet the eye. And I don't know, I've had a really great time with it. I've mentioned it a number of times now. I have had my time with it now as well, and I still use it. It's still on my altar. I'm still pulling cards from it. I've had to breathe from it a little bit. I've had to like have it there, yes, but I'm also using the Vintage Wisdom by Victoria Moseley at the moment just to cleanse the palette a little bit, because I was getting a little bit obsessive and it wasn't suiting the way that I use oracle cards either. So when I'm doing sort of more profound evocative readings, I'll pull from here as well, and then I'll pull from the Vintage Wisdom and sort of give the hug in the end, because I think this adds just another dimension and another layer of texture to a reading. It's hard to describe it, but it is a very, very good deck at doing what it is supposed to do, which is being deliciously obscure and quite sultry. I don't know, if I had to describe this deck in an anthropomorphized fashion, I would say it would be a statuesque woman in a really dark blood red flowy gown that's like low around the the shoulders, very like violinesque, and the red lips and like the hair, and it's just smoking one of those elongated cigars like in a cabaret bar. Just, that's how it feels to me. Sometimes I see my deck as people, my decks, plural, as people, and I can't help but give them like a persona, if you will. So that's the persona that has emerged for the Maiden Oracle. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? All right, and the last deck that I'm going to show you is a Mages Only, and it is the German edition of the Ansata Tarot. It has an art style that is exceptionally unique and one that really speaks to me. I remember the first time I saw the Ansata Tarot, I think it was on a Facebook group, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, wow, that's really interesting. The artwork was so different and something that I'd not seen before. I hadn't seen this style of deck around. And I thought, wonder what that is. When I went to discover more about the Ansata, I realized that it was out of print. And so years went past and I finally saw this edition come up on a Facebook group. And I didn't care that it was the German edition. I know my mages well enough to not have to read the names and be perplexed by it. And the symbolism is really, really full on and interesting. So I bought it, and then I bought it and I just did nothing with it, and I hate that. I hate it when I do that. For me, a deck should be used unless it is specifically a collector's, kind of acquisition, but I'm not even that big into collecting, specifically collector item decks, if that makes sense. I do have some that are still brand new in the box that are worth quite a bit of money that I just will do nothing with. Other than admire, because I am a collector at heart. But I didn't feel like the Ansata was one of those decks, especially because it came pre-loved, so it had already been used, and I thought, no, I want to use it. But being as I have always shied away from major only decks, I just never knew what I was going to do with it. I knew what I could do with it, but I just didn't like what I could do with it. It's hard to explain. But then I got over myself, basically, because sometimes I'm my own worst enemy. And I started to pull a card at the start of a reading. So I usually do soul card first to pull that metaphysical healing message. And then I come through with the theme, the tone of the reading. And the tone of the reading typically comes from the Ansata Tarot. So I pull one now before most of my major readings, and I have started to love that arrangement. And so it sits here on my altar, utilized time and time and time and time again. And I think that I'm getting more use out of it than I ever thought that I would. And it makes me want to acquire different types of mages, specifically the Blue Moon Tarot by Julie Takuti Watts, the author of the, what is this one? Journey into Egypt Tarot. Yeah, just had to look at it then. So that was the last of the witchy decks that I have currently been using. It's not the bulk of the witchy decks on my shelf by any stretch of the imagination, but these are seriously magical. Especially, well, I think the Everyday Witch Tarot wants to be more magical than it is. So for me, the Everyday Witch made it in here because of the cutesy kind of witchy inspired artwork. But I still think it gives you a kick-ass magical experience because the reading is so on point. But the others that I have mentioned here hold a unique essence for magic, specifically for those who are very mystically minded, those who are leaning more into psychic readings rather than your straight up tarot readings. There is such a magical layer to these decks that they open themselves up to be used as psychic tools or intuitive tools. They come with an energy and an essence that you can, as an intuitive individual, tap into and then utilize some of that magic. So highly recommend these decks, all of them or some of them, whichever one tickles your fancy. But I did want to talk about them because I don't think I have done a video on magical tarot decks for a really long time, and I just thought this would be a really good one for Card Slinger and for the Coven as well, because it is really suitable for anyone with a magical mindset who truly wants to get like something extra from their tarot oracle reading experience. So I'll just leave it at that. And if you liked this one and you want me to go through my shelves and pull out the witchiest decks that I have on my shelf, either tarot or oracle or both, then do let me know and I will absolutely do that for you. And in the meantime, I am wishing you guys so much love, luck, peace and joy. Thanks for hanging out with me. Happy holidays, and I will talk to you soon. Mwah!